What's up, guys? Tonight, we're gonna learn something.
You gonna learn today. You gonna learn today.
Because for some reason, John Kiriakou has been in my feed. And I don't know much about the CIA, but I do know about the polygraphs that he's talking about in this video, the top secret clearance process, the interview process for getting hired by the NSA, which is probably similar to the CIA. I don't know, maybe it's not, but it is involved. So we're gonna watch this video and I'm going to give you guys my experience. I'm not giving away anything classified because I don't want to go to jail. So let's go.
I go to the address and it's this, normal office tower that Rosalind's famous for.
Oh yeah, this is taken from the Dalton Fischer podcast, so I will link him in the description. Go check him out and give him a sub. He has great interviews.
I go up to whatever it was. I think it was the 6th floor. And there's no name on the door, nothing. It's just a door. So I knock on the door. And this guy opens the door just a crack. And he says, "Are you here for Bob?" And I said, "Yes." So he lets me in. And it's a little 6 by 6 foot atrium. But the second door has a big spin dial lock on it, like a bank, right? So he does the dial.
Yeah, that's a SCIF. Secret Compartmented Information Facility. Yeah, a SCIF, we call them. It's just somewhere where you can go talk top secret stuff, read top secret information, watch a top secret briefing, or get a top secret briefing. Just a SCIF. They have really thick walls. They're regularly scanned for bugs. There's only one, well, I won't say that, never mind. But yeah, it's just a SCIF. They made theirs elaborate with a dial on the door, probably to impress the new people.
And there's a woman on the other side. And she said, "Are you here for Bob?" And I said, "I am." So she lets me in and I'm sitting there. And then Bob comes out. I still, to this day, I have no idea if his name really was Bob.
Yeah.
And that's the only name I ever knew him by. But he was like a 6'6", 320 pound, loud, smiling, good old guy.
He is an amazing storyteller. If you were sitting next to him on a plane, you wouldn't think anything of him. Guys like that just look normal little accountant guy, but nope. He is a highly trained CIA operative who will turn you and make you give away state secrets.
So he says, "Jerry says you're a good guy." I said, "Well, I appreciate it." I said, "He's an amazing professor. He's a great guy." And he says, "John, let me ask you something. Have you ever betrayed a friendship?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't think so. I hope not." He said, "Okay, that's okay. Listen, I want you to do a couple of things for me." He says, "I want you to go to this address. There are going to be some people there waiting for you." And I said, "Like right now?" And he says, "Yeah, right now." I said, "Okay." He said, "Then I want you to call me, or better yet, I'll call you." I said, "Okay." So I go home, I get in my car, I drive out to this equally nondescript building in Vienna, Virginia. 1-story flat building that you would drive past 1,000 times, you would never notice it.
Yeah, that's what they do. Most of the polygraphs, interviews, stuff like that, in just these nondescript random office parks scattered around DC, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware. There's a few in Delaware. But yeah, just these, how you're driving in the industrial area of your town or city or whatever, and you see all these office parks, and you're like, what businesses are these? They're almost always empty, but there's all these office buildings with random names on them. Yeah, that's the CIA or the NSA or the FBI or some other 3-letter agency, DEA, ATF, whatever. That's where they conduct their polygraphs, interviews, some training, like seminar type training in conference rooms, are in these nondescript office parks that you drive past all the time going through your industrial district and you never pay attention. That's why they use them, because nobody pays attention to them.
So I ring the bell. This guy lets me in. You John? And I said, yeah, come on in. So I go there, and there's a table with 3 chairs on one side and 1 chair on the other. And in the 3 chairs are 3 people who never identified themselves by name, but they identified themselves as being a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and an anthropologist.
That's kind of like your initial screening. They ask you questions, and then depending on your answers, they determine whether you move on to the next phase of the interview process. But really, it's really easy. If any of you guys want to get a top secret clearance, it's really easy. Just be honest. If you have credit card debt, make sure you note it down on your SF-86. I mean, if you've had contact with foreign nationals or you have continuing contact with foreign nationals, you might have issues. But for the most part, just be honest. Tell the psychiatrist and the anthropologist and everybody the truth. Go to your polygraph, tell the truth. What it is not that they want people who are perfect. What they want is people who tell the truth. They want, at least for the NSA. I don't know about the CIA. The CIA might want the opposite. But at the NSA, when you're going for your TSSCI, top secret clearance, special compartment information, you just tell the truth. They want to know you're honest. They want to know you understand yourself, your problems, your flaws, stuff like that. That way you can't be compromised. I mean, you can be. Anybody can be compromised for whatever it is. But for the most part, it makes you harder to compromise because they know everything, all your flaws. You know all your flaws. That way they feel secure that they can watch out for you being tempted or you being bribed or blackmailed or something because they already know about it. So you can't be blackmailed by them telling you, we're going to tell your agency this if your agency already knows it. Basically, that's what it is. Anyway, I ranted long enough. Let's go.
So I sit down, and then one of them says, describe your relationship with your mother. And I go, oh, I said, yeah, my mom and I are close. She's a school teacher, and, she's a terrific mother and very nurturing and, took good care of all 3 of us. And
that question is to see if you have, I forget what it's called, external affect or external locus, something like that. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But that's what that question is for, to determine if you can objectively judge your relationship with your mother, whether it's good or bad, and then articulate it to them. Basically, they're just trying to see like your psychological state, how your brain functions, if you think this way or that way, and how you describe your relationship with your mother might determine you think more this way or you think more that way, or you have an internal locus of self or an external locus of interest. I don't know. It's something like that. Sorry, I'm not a psychologist.
And then they're like, okay, describe your relationship with your father. Was your father the disciplinarian? And I said, no, actually. My dad's a big, strong guy, and I think he was probably always afraid he would hurt us or something. So no, my dad's a very gentle soul. Then they asked me that question again. Have you ever betrayed a friendship? And I said, I don't think so.
That, I think, is a CIA-specific question because basically your job as a CIA officer is to betray friendships. You develop relationships, personal relationships, friendships with people you're trying to flip or convert. You develop a deeply personal, friendly, friendship-type relationship. And then you say, look, you're a great guy. We're good friends. Our wives are friends. But I have to tell you, I'm not really a shoe salesman or a trainer or a attaché or whatever. I'm really a CIA officer, and I need information from you, and you'll do that for me, right? Because we're best friends. Remember when I took you to Turks and Caicos? Didn't our wives have so much fun? Here, let's look at these pictures of our kids together. And then the person feels guilty and guilty and guilty. You're exploiting a friendship and betraying it to be a CIA officer. I think that's a CIA specific question that they ask to screen people. And I don't think you can give a wrong answer. If it's yes, then great. We can teach you how to do that better. If it's no, then, well, you're a stand-up guy. We can use you as an analyst, or we can teach you how to do that. And you can go out in the field and do field craft. That's what I think, but I'm not positive. I know I didn't get to ask that question at the NSA. They didn't ask if you betrayed a friendship.
Let me think about it for a second. And then the anthropologist says, no, that's the answer we were looking for. And then one of them says, you're going to need to go into the next room and you need to give us some piss, some blood, and some hair. I go, okay. So I went and gave him some piss, some blood, and some hair.
That's for the drug test, obviously. And also to log your DNA in the system, because the government loves databases. Even if you're applying for a job at the CIA, you haven't even made it to the final level and you're hired yet. You have to give them some piss, some blood, and some hair. What do you think they're gonna do with that? He didn't even question it, I bet. What are they gonna do with that? They're gonna do a drug test, but they could have done that with any one of them. Piss, blood, or hair. They could have done the drug test. They didn't need all three to do a drug test. So what are they gonna do with the rest of it? Put it in a database so that the government knows who he is. He's probably gonna have to do a 10 card fingerprints. They already have his DNA because he gave them piss, blood, and hair, so they don't even need to do a cheek swab.
And then I left. I went home. I called my fiance. She goes, how did it go? I said, I have no idea. They asked me these 3 weird questions. It took 15 minutes. Then they took my pee, my blood, and pulled some of my hairs out. I get a call like 4 weeks later from Bob. He goes, you blew the doors off that meeting. I go, Bob, it was like from Bizarro World. I didn't understand what they wanted. They wouldn't explain anything. He said, you aced it. He said, now we want you to go to headquarters. You're going to have a meeting at headquarters. So I said, okay. So I go to CIA headquarters and I went to like 4 different offices. They asked me 1,000 million questions and I leave. By then I've gotten married.
Number 1, 2, and 3, and probably the HR manager of each section will interview you to determine if you're a good fit for their section. So that's what they were doing with him. He was sitting in interviews with a bunch of different directorates. We didn't call them directorates at the NSA. We called them departments. But at the CIA, they're called directorates. So yeah, he was meeting with a bunch of different heads, co-heads, chair heads, vice heads, whatever. And probably the HR person and maybe the number 3 person to determine if he was a good fit for their directorate or not, and if they wanted to bring him in to their directorate.
I go home. She's like, how did it go? I said, I don't have any idea. There's no feedback. There's no reaction from anybody. There's no response. Nothing.
That's how it is at the NSA too. You do your interviews, you do your boards, your screenings, all that stuff, and you get nothing. You get no feedback. You don't understand the questions, why they're asking, because when you first apply and you're first being onboarded, you don't know anything about how the system works really. So you're just kind of going through it, hoping that you get through, but you don't know if you're doing good or you're doing bad or you're answering the questions properly or improperly, because you just get blank stares and they say someone will be in touch or not. And then you wait 3-4 weeks, a month, 2-3 weeks, however long, and then you get a phone call. Hey, we want you to come in for the next round of the onboarding process. And you're like, oh.
Then Bob calls. He goes, you aced it, man. You aced it. I go, Bob, there's no feedback. He goes, no, you don't need any feedback. He said, they want you in your raw state. I said, okay, so what next? He goes, look, they're going to give you a polygraph exam, and if you pass it, you're in. I was a nervous friggin' wreck about the polygraph. I had never taken a polygraph exam.
So this section is going to be a little bit long. If you want to fast forward, go ahead. But he's leaving out a lot of stuff here where, maybe he's not, but I don't know how the CIA works. Maybe he has to do it afterwards, after the onboarding process or the interview process. But before you do any of this stuff, you have to apply for your top secret clearance. You have to be sponsored by somebody, whether it's the military, a civilian company, a contractor. You have to be sponsored by somebody because somebody has to pay for the investigator, because you're gonna fill out about a phone book's worth of paper called an SF-86, which is the top secret clearance paperwork. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. Big bunch of papers that ask about your life all the way back 10 years, I believe. 7 to 10 years it goes back. You have to put in addresses, phone numbers, friends, contacts, activities, all that type of stuff in your SF-86, and you turn that in. And then you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait for your clearance to be adjudicated. I waited. I worked for DINFOS on Fort Meade, the Defense Information Operations School. I don't remember what DINFOS stand for, but it's on Fort Meade. That's where I took my photography and videography lessons when I first joined the Navy as a photographer. BSP, which is basic still photography. And I took the video course, which I cannot remember right now, but it was like the video course where you become a photojournalist and you can do like the AFIS news and stuff like that. But I took both those classes, ended up going back there for the NSA, and then I worked in the barracks at DINFOS for the Navy, helping kids, teaching kids, helping them with their homework, and then doing barracks room inspections and, you know, basic barracks crap, making sure they didn't sneak anybody in, no partying, no drinking, stuff like that. So anyway, you fill out your SF-86, you send it up, and then it gets assigned to an adjudicator or an investigator. That investigator will take your SF-86, find all the people, look up their numbers, find their addresses, go talk to them or call them, whatever. They'll talk to everybody, try to verify as much information as they can. They write up a report, and that report goes to the adjudicator, whether it's your SSO, which is a special security officer in the Navy. I don't know what it's called in the other services, but it'll go to your SSO or somebody like that, most likely. And then they're the ones that adjudicate it. They look at your file, they look at the results that the investigator got, and they determine whether you get your clearance or not. It's not the investigator. A lot of people think, or they get mad at the investigator, oh, they talked to this person and then they denied me. They didn't deny you. All they did was collect information, put it in a report, and send it to the adjudicator. Then the adjudicator determines if the blemishes in your record are bad enough that you don't deserve a top secret clearance, basically. And then the adjudicator will approve or deny. If you get approved, then you go for your polygraph. And your first poly, depending on what type of clearance you have, will either be a lifestyle poly or a counterterrorism poly. Counterterrorism poly, they just ask you basic questions about whether you have any foreign connections, any foreign relationships, foreign ties, dual citizenship, stuff like that. That's just a basic counterterrorism, and that's what you get with a confidential, secret, and classified clearance. That's a basic background check. For the top secret clearance, you will get what's called an SSBI, which is we always call this super secret background investigation, but that's not what it actually stands for. I will put it up on the screen if I figure it out, because my brain's not remembering right now. But an SSBI is a more in-depth background investigation where they go talk to all the people you put in your SF-86, all that type of stuff. Then they write up their report, send it to the adjudicator, and the adjudicator goes, okay, this person's not a national security risk, and then they send you for your poly. So let's move on to the poly section.
So they scheduled the polygraph, and I was very fortunate in that first polygraph because I had a very respectful, young African-American woman. And so she hooks me up, and it's funny. They put a cuff on you like they're taking your blood pressure. And then they put these electrodes on your fingertips. Then they put a belt around you to measure your breathing. Then they put electrodes on your ankle. And there was one other that they did. Like, was it on my temple? I don't remember anymore.
Yes, it was your temple. Well, it might have been your temple. It might have been your wrist. Depends on the polygrapher. I've had both.
So you have to sit there like this and you can't move. You just have to be as still as possible. And you have to answer all the questions, yes or no. Because the thing doesn't detect anything else. It just detects bodily reactions. Increases in your heart rate or respiration, sweating. It's very, very sensitive to sweating.
And that's why they are inadmissible in court. Because the results are up to the interpretation of the polygrapher. And that can create all kinds of bias and human fallacy. And so that's why we don't allow them in court. Basically, all they test is if your body has a reaction. And then the real tool in the room is the polygrapher asking the questions. Because they'll notice that your body had a reaction. And then they'll hone in on that and drill down on that and try to figure out why your body had that reaction to that question until they get a confession.
So I called Dr. Post in advance and I said, listen, any advice you could give me, I would really, really appreciate this because I've gotten so far in the process. I really want this to happen.
And that's how they get you. They get you initially when you're like, oh, yeah, that might be a cool job. That might be cool to do, a CIA agent or work for the NSA or the FBI or the DEA or the ATF or any other 3-letter agency, DARPA, 5-letter agency. You know, that's how they do it. That's how they do it and get you hooked is you might be lukewarm initially, but then they set up these challenges and roadblocks and questions and, you know, give me your piss, blood, and hair, and you're gonna have to do a polygraph, and all this stuff makes you want it more because it feels like you're further through the process, and it's the sunk cost fallacy. You don't want to give up on something that you've already sunk so much time, energy, and effort into. So it's the sunk cost fallacy that they use to trick you to going, well, I've already made it this far. Now I want to see it through to the end, and I want to finish this out. That's how they get you.
So he said, I can't really give you any insider tips. He said, but I'll tell you something as a psychologist or as a psychiatrist. He said, you're going to be in a room that has nothing on the walls. It's just a white room with a window. And of course, they're going to be looking at you from the other side of the window as the polygrapher is doing the exam. He said, there's bound to be a speck on the wall. He said, focus on the speck. Think about nothing but the speck. He said, now they're going to ask you some very disturbing questions, questions that may make you upset. He said, just answer the question yes or no. Don't think about it. If they say, have you ever killed anybody? Say no.
Unless you have killed somebody. No, I'm joking. But even if you have killed somebody, don't tell them because by the time you walk out of your poly, you're going to be in handcuffs by the FBI. He's getting advice which is perfect advice. Don't think about it, just answer. If you don't think about it too much and you just answer, your body won't respond to the question, or won't have time to respond to the question, because your brain works faster than the rest of your body and nervous system. So if you just intake the information, answer it without dwelling on it, thinking about it, then you'll be better off.
I sit down in the thing. She wires me up, and it takes a good 20 minutes to wire you up to this polygraph machine. And I sit there, and as soon as I sit and I'm wired up, I look, and sure enough, there's a speck like straight ahead of me. So I'm looking at the speck. And they start asking you questions. Have you ever committed a violent felony? No.
Okay, so he is taking, I can tell from the first question, he's taking a lifestyle poly, which is for the SSBI background investigation. And you have two types of polys. I already told you about that. And the lifestyle poly is the one where they ask you, do you have sex with goats? Are you homosexual? Stuff like that. They ask questions about your lifestyle as opposed to just counterterrorism stuff. So the lifestyle poly is the one you'll get your initial interview or your initial intake, you'll get a lifestyle poly. And then after your probationary period, depending on how long it is, you'll get another lifestyle poly. And then every 5 years after that, you have to take another poly, but that is just a counterterrorism poly. It's pretty simple. You don't have to do the lifestyle poly anymore after your probationary period because they trust you at that point.
Have you ever used a weapon in a crime? No. And then they get, into more mundane things. Are you financially responsible? Yes. Have you ever shoplifted anything? No. Have you ever taken anything from the office worth more than $20? No. Have you ever had sex with a man? And she just threw that one at me like a grenade. So I go, no, which was true.
That's funny, which was true. He had to get that in there. But yeah, that's a lifestyle poly. Are you homosexual? Have you had sex with a man? Have you ever had sex with a goat? Have you ever had sex with an animal? No. And then they'll ask you, what's your favorite book? Or, just random mundane questions, and then they'll go back. Have you ever fucked a horse? They just, like you said, they just throw it in there like a grenade, and you're like, what? They're just trying to shake you up, remain calm, answer the question, and move on. They're just trying to shake you up, see if you get rattled easily, and it's gonna create a physiological effect on the polygraph for them to try and calibrate it or try to see what happens when you get nervous or surprised or just your physiology changes. That's all they're looking for. Physiology changes.
But I could feel my heart going like this, like she's trying to trip me up. And she says, let's take a little break. You're sweating profusely. I can tell that you're nervous. I said, yeah, you kind of threw that question out there like a grenade into the middle of the room. She said, it's a standard question. I said, I understand. So I just kind of sat there for a couple of minutes and got my heart rate to slow down. And then she said, I'll be honest with you, you are reacting to one of the questions. Which was bullshit. I was not reacting to one of the questions. But I came to learn later in my career that this is a turd that they throw at you to see how you respond to it.
They'll do that too. Oh, you're reacting to one of the questions. No, I'm not. Or what question? That's what they want you to do. What question? And then they name some random question that they think you responded to or that they're just more interested in. And then they'll poke and prod a little bit and try to figure out why you reacted to that. But if you look at your polygraph chart afterwards, or you request it and you can get it, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But you look at the chart and it's the same. It's rock steady throughout. But they will accuse you of reacting to a question, and that's usually where they get a jump or a reaction in your physiological state. It's all mind games. All of this is mind games to try and hire what they think is the best candidate.
I said, okay. And so she says, I'm gonna consult with my boss, and then I'm gonna come in and we're gonna go back over the question that you're reacting to. I was like, great. So she leaves. And you know that they're right there on the other side of the window or of the mirror. You can't see them, but you know that they're there. So she comes back in and she says, You're reacting to the question about credit card usage.
Yeah, see, she left the room. She went to go talk to the other people watching the interrogation, because that's what it is. It's not a polygraph, it's an interrogation. But she went to go talk to the other people who were observing the interrogation / polygraph. And they went through and picked a question to try and poke and prod a little bit, because maybe he had an elevated heart rate at that moment or around that question, or he started sweating more. That's the problem with the polygraph. You don't know why he was sweating more. Maybe it's just getting hotter in the room. Like you said, he was sweating profusely on that last question. Maybe it's just getting hotter in the room. Doesn't mean he's nervous. He's Greek. He might just sweat a lot. That's the problem with polygraphs. But yeah, she was just coming back in, saying you have a problem with this question, to see if he would bite and start digging himself a hole or confessing to something.
I go, what? And she says, yes. Are you irresponsible with your credit cards? I go, no. I don't have any balance on my credit cards. I pay my credit cards in full every month. I'm still laughing about it all these years later. This is 25 years ago. No, it's 35 years ago. 35 years ago. So she asks me again the credit card question, and I answered no. And then she's like, okay, we're done. So she starts unhooking me. And I said, how did I do?
Yeah, see, she threw that question out there because somebody observing or whatever got a wild bee in their bonnet and said, ask him about this. I feel like he was deceptive. And so she went back in there. She tossed the grenade and he threw it back to her. He's like, no, I pay my credit card bill every month in full. And you know that because you're the CIA. Then she was like, okay, that didn't work. He didn't bite. So she said, okay, we're done.
And she said, we're not allowed to say. And she winked at me. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I passed. So I went home and I said to my wife, I think I passed. And then Bob called and he says, they're fighting over you at headquarters.
Love Bob.
Bob was great. It turned out that Bob was the director of HR for the entire CIA. Wow. I would never, ever have even met someone so important as this guy had it not been for Jerry Post. Jerry Post, God bless him, who just died of COVID a year ago. But man, Jerry was good to me, really good to me. Even later in life, he was even better to me.
Yeah.
So, so I got multiple offers from the agency, and I decided not to go into operations right away because I was a Middle East specialist. And
so, sorry to cut you off. Before we get into that, I want to stay on the interview process.
Oh, sure.
It's just funny. So, what were some of the other questions that you mentioned were disturbing that stands out? And why, what is the point of them asking those sorts of questions? Like, what are they trying to select for?
That's a good question. So I didn't know for a long time what the purpose of any of these questions was. 10 years later, I happened to be transferred overseas, and one of my colleagues was a former polygrapher. And I asked him that question. What was the point of all these weird questions? And he said, I can best answer your question with some anecdotes. He goes, look, I've been a polygrapher for 25 years. And over the course of 25 years, I've had people, applicants mostly, admit to every crime you can imagine, including murder. Because they think, oh, this is the CIA, I'm going to do some wet work. They're going to be impressed that I killed this guy in Syracuse and I buried his body under the train tracks, right? Wait, they're not impressed. They're calling the FBI before you can leave the building, and then the FBI is going to come and take you away, which is exactly what happened.
They're not going to be impressed. They're not going to be like, oh, this guy's a badass. We should put him on him. The GRU at the CIA, that's like their Navy SEALs. That's a lot of retired Delta or separated Delta, Navy SEAL, SEAL Team 6, SAS, those type of guys. I'm pretty sure it's called the GRU at the CIA.
So He said, it's the purpose is to rattle you. He said, one of the things that we do, and he said, you may remember this, we always start off by saying, we're not looking for perfect people. We're looking for honest people. So just answer the questions truthfully. And if there's something that you did in your past, admit to it and we'll get through it. That's bullshit. They're not going to help you get through it. They're going to call the FBI and they're going to report your confession that you just made to a federal officer. So if you've done something, if you've committed a felony, don't apply for a job at the CIA and then confess it to the polygrapher. That's not going to work for you. So he told me that, there was a guy who admitted to a murder in Syracuse and they got him walking out of the polygrapher's office. He said there was a guy that was a janitor of all things. Because, even the janitors need to have security clearances. You're in the CIA. We have classified stuff hanging up on the walls everywhere you turn your head. And so you get a pre-employment polygraph. You get one after 3 years. That's your probationary period. And then every 5 years for the rest of your career.
Okay, so the CIA works just like the NSA. You get your pre-employment or your onboarding poly. You get one after 3 years for a probationary period, and then every 5 years after that, you get a regular counterterrorism poly. The first two are lifestyle polys.
So he said this was a normal 5-year, they call it a reinvestigation poly. Now, in the pre-hire, and in the 3-year, they ask you what are called lifestyle questions. That is, are you gay? Are you bi? Are you leather? Are you crazy? Are you a pervert? Do you like to beat prostitutes? They ask you all that stuff.
That's the lifestyle poly I was talking about, because they're asking about your lifestyle. They want to know if there's any avenues for you to be blackmailed or bribed or converted or flipped over to the other side, because they want to know if you're hiding anything in your lifestyle, like you're secretly gay or you have a gambling problem or something like that. That's why they ask the lifestyle poly questions.
After the 3 years, they don't ask you any of that stuff anymore, because by then they figure, we know each other well enough that you're going to be okay. So he said, because they don't ask those lifestyle questions anymore, he would always throw an extra question in at the end. Open-ended. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think is important? 99% of the people say no. Some people say, what do you mean? He said, well...
See, that's what we call a gotcha question. He's trying to get you to incriminate yourself, because when he asks you that, if you do have something that you're worried about in the polygraph, it's going to be on the top of your mind, and when he asks you that, you're probably going to mention something about that thing. And then he can dig and probe and figure out what's going on, basically.
Some people say, what do you mean? He said, well, to this janitor, things like murder, rape, robbery, bestiality. And the guy says, what was that last one? And my friend says, I knew I had him. He goes, bestiality. The guy says, what's that mean? And my friend says, it's actually very common, he says.
And that's what we call minimization. You minimize the crime or the activity or the action so that people think, oh yeah, it's fine. Lots of people do this. It's not a big deal. Minimization. And then you rationalize it. Why'd you do it? Oh, I can understand totally why you did that. Tell me more. And that's how you get a confession.
Everybody does it. It's having sex with an animal. And the guy says, I may have done that 3 times. And my friend says, okay, well, like I said, everybody does it, but just so we can get past it for the purpose of the polygraph, in what cases would you have sex with an animal? The guy says, well, sometimes when I have a fight with my wife to get back at her, I go to the barn and I bugger the horse because it's her horse. He said he gets up on a step stool and he gets the horse. And he's like, okay, and you've done this more than once? He said, I may have done it a couple, 3 times.
A couple, 3 times. It's hilarious. That is the rationalization part. After the minimization part. First you minimize, then you rationalize. Why'd you do it? Oh, I can understand why you did that. Anybody in your situation would have done that. That's rationalization. And then you go to confession. And they tell you what you want to hear. Be careful for this. You ever get stopped by the cops or you get pulled in for questioning? Get a lawyer. Shut your mouth and get a lawyer. They are too good at this and you can't win. Shut your mouth and get a lawyer.
But I never had to deal with anything like that. I used to, in fact, for my 5-year, I had been in like 8 years at that point, and I mentioned to one of my coworkers, I said, oh, I got to drive out to Vienna. I got my polygraph. And so
Vienna, Virginia, another office park, guaranteed. That's all there is in Vienna, Virginia. Office parks and industrial areas. There's a few housing areas, but mostly it's office parks and industrial areas in Vienna, Virginia. So he went to some random, nondescript, anonymous office park. You go to the door, you go in. It looks like a random office with nobody working in it. But it looks like a random office, and then there's a polygrapher in the back room somewhere.
His polygraph had taken 2 days because he was stuck on this question. Have you ever had unauthorized contact with a foreign intelligence service?
It's an important one.
It's an important one. So my polygraph took 40 minutes because I never did anything.
And his friend was just getting a basic counterterrorism poly. Have you ever had contact with a foreign government? Do you have any long-term relationships or intimate relationships with a foreign national? Stuff like that. That's just basic counterterrorism polygraph, and he is stuck on it for some reason.
Because I never did anything. And I come back, and he had gone to lunch when I was getting ready to leave for the polygraph. He came back from lunch and I'm sitting at the desk and he goes, dude, I thought you had a polygraph. You better get going. I said, no, I did it. I'm back. He goes, come on. I said, no, I did it. He said, I was on for 2 days and they made me cry, he says.
That's because you're getting stuck on one question because you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing. Or you feel guilty about doing something. Maybe it's not even a bad thing, but you feel guilty about it. You don't want to tell the polygrapher, and you are reacting in the polygraph. And that's why they're drilling down on it. Tell the truth, and you won't have to worry about anything. Just tell them the truth. That's all they want to know. Honestly, all you people out there who might be thinking about getting into the intelligence agencies or the clandestine service or anything like that, where you need a TSSCI or higher, just tell the truth. That's the main thing. If you tell the truth, they'll determine whether you're a good candidate or not. More than likely, you'll be a good candidate because you told the truth about everything. As long as you don't have like a felony background or beating people or anything like that. If your record is relatively clean, but you have credit card debt or house debt, something like that, you're not gambling or anything. You just have normal people debt. You don't have anything to worry about as long as you tell them the truth, because then you can't be exploited or flipped or turned.
I said, I don't talk to Libyans at cocktail parties, which was his problem. I said, I've never done anything. I'm clean. And so that was it. I never, ever had a problem with a polygraph.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you very, very much. I know a lot of people don't, but I hope you learned something.
You're gonna learn today. You're gonna learn today.
I hope if you are trying to get a top secret clearance, you have a better understanding of how it works. If not, leave your questions in the comments or suggest another video I should react to. I mean, I don't know a lot about the CIA, but I know a lot about government. I know a lot about getting a clearance and changing jobs in the government, getting promoted in the government, things like that. So if you are interested in that field or just curious or just want to hear me talk more, let me know in the comments. Thanks, guys. Bye.